Here we are, guys, in part 30 of this story. In the land of waves, our favorite blonde encounters the Kyuubi. Watch the subsequent events unfold as Naruto uses the power that was sealed inside of him on the day of his birth. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Now, let's begin. 2.5 years. He had been gone for 2.5 years. Returning home to Konoha for the first time since he left 2.5 years ago, Uzumaki Naruto was greeted, first by a protective father, and then by longing lover. Within minutes of stepping foot in Konoha, Naruto's lips were locked with those of his girlfriend of 3 years. "It's good to be home," smiled Naruto as he and Hinata broke away from one another, the pale beauty resting her head comfortably on Naruto's shoulder. "Geez, not even 5 minutes and you're already getting some action," called out Jiraiya as he entered the Hyuga compound. Looking over at a frozen Hiyashi, "What's wrong with him?" "I don't know. Perhaps it's a Hyuga thing," joked Naruto, giving Hiyashi a few minutes to reboot. "Naruto?" asked Hiyashi as he broke out of his stupor, getting a knot out of the blonde. "He looks just like Minato did when he was that age. It certainly seems like he's changed. I wonder how strong he's gotten." "How's everything going, Hiyashi-san?" asked Naruto. "Fine. The elders have been giving me a headache, but everything's fine," commented Hiyashi. "Now what were you saying about suitors for Hinata-kun?" asked a serious Naruto. Hiyashi could immediately tell from the way Naruto was carrying himself that the blonde had gotten stronger. "The elders. Somehow, the thought of trying to marry my daughter off to a nobleman to fill their pockets and egos came to them," replied Hiyashi. "Odd. I don't remember Neji mentioning anything about suitors," said Naruto, glancing over at Neji. "That's because when we last met, this problem hadn't occurred," replied Neji. "Neji Niasen, you saw Naruto-kun?" asked Hinata. "You mean you didn't tell her?" said Naruto to Neji. "I thought it would be best to keep it between myself and Neji for the time being, but seeing as you're back, I suppose we could let Hinata in on it," said Hiyashi. "However, we will have to do it in the privacy of my study." I hate to interrupt, but Naruto, we've kind of got to see Tsunade to let her know we're back," interrupted Jiraiya. "And you can probably ditch the tacky gray cloak now." Nodding, Naruto removed the cloak and the resulting image left a few Hyugas staring at the blonde wide-eyed, and one of them thinking certain thoughts. "Oh my. Naruto-kun looks hot and sexy in that coat. Where did that come from?" thought Hinata, practically drooling and blushing a bright red at the sight of Naruto wearing his sage coat. "Okay, is this Naruto or Minato? Now I'm confused," thought Hiyashi. The sage coat certainly made Naruto look more like his father, except that it was lacking the high collar and the colors were different. Everyone was broken out of their stupor as a call came from the entrance to the clan compound. "I am Akinori of the famed Rakusa clan and I have come to seek the hand of one Hyuga Hinata." Hiyashi merely sighed. "Not another one," he said before turning to Akinori. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but my daughter Hinata is not available. Now, I'll ask you only once. Please leave." Hiyashi turned to Akinori and activated his Byakugan, and standing tall and broad. "I see. So I must prove my strength to earn the right to court the beautiful maiden," said Akinori, drawing a sword. "If that is the case, then I accept your challenge." "I guess this one's not going to leave so easily," thought Hiyashi. Before he could slip into his fighting stance, he felt a hand on his shoulder. "Please don't waste your time on him," said Naruto, turning to Akinori. "You heard him. Hinata-chan's not available. I'll give you one last chance to leave or I'll make you." The blonde Jinchuriki placed his hand on the hilt of his own sword. If this man was from a famed clan and carried a sword, then Naruto was going to have a little bit of fun seeing just how skilled this man was with a sword. "I see. So you're also competing for the fair maiden's heart," said Akinori, causing Hinata to blush at the very mentioning of Naruto marrying her. "I've already have her heart just as she already has mine. Now, you've caused enough commotion for today. Leave or else," threatened Naruto. "You can't talk to me like that. I traveled over 2 weeks and I'm not going to watch as some worthless peasant keeps me from my prize," shouted an enraged Akinori as he charged towards Naruto with his sword ready to cut flesh. All it took was the blink of an eye. Naruto had his sword drawn and was standing in a finishing pose from a strike behind Akinori. "Fast," thought Hiyashi, watching with amusement. "And that was a skilled strike too. Just from that one strike, I can already tell that Naruto's exceptionally skilled with his sword. Even more so than Tenten-chan, and she's been training in Uzumaki Mito's Kenjutsu style with the aid of Yugao-san," commented Neji. "Hinata-chan's not some prize," growled Naruto as the blade from Akinori's sword separated from its hilt in a clean cut. Akinori could only watch as the blade of his sword clanged against the ground. "She is a beautiful flower that is to be cherished and loved." "How dare you! That sword cost my 2 million ryo," shouted Akinori, only getting a laugh from Naruto. "Really? Because I've met sticks of butter that were harder to cut through," taunted Naruto. "That's it. Now taste my true power. Doton, Earth Flow Wave, shouted Akinori, slamming his hands into the ground and sending a wave of mud towards his blonde opponent. Naruto merely stood his ground and grit. At the last moment, he thrust his sword into the mud wave and Akinori could only gasp as his most powerful ninjutsu was absorbed by the blade. Arashi, shouted Naruto as he simply thrust the katana forward into thin air. Normally, Akinori would have scoffed at a wasted attack, but not when he saw his own jutsu emerge from the blade and shoot towards him, slamming into the suitor and sending him flying out of the Hyuga compound. Is this really what you've had to put up with for the past few months? Asked Naruto, turning to Hiyashi and Hinata. Sadly, yes, sighed Hiyashi. However, now that you're back, I can finally inform the elders that I have found a worthy candidate for my daughter. This earned a slight blush from both Naruto and Hinata. Now, why don't you report to Hokage-sama and then stop by for tea afterwards? I look forward to hearing about your journey, said Hiyashi, before sending Naruto a cold, soul-piercing glare. I also hope you remembered my advice from before I left. Sweating, Naruto frantically nodded. Even after all his training, Hinata's father still managed to maintain a rather unnerving effect on the blonde. Hey Hinata-chan, wanna go see Bakken? A pink cherry blossom was humming her way through the streets of Konoha. She had been asked by her master to pick up the daily traffic reports and deliver them to her, and Haruno Sakura was on her way to the mission hall to give them to Tsunade, seeing as the Hokage was stuck assigning missions to all teams that day, and not just those that were higher ranked. It's been nearly 2.5 years. They should be getting back by now. I can't wait to see Sasuke-kun again. I hope he still likes me and we can pick up where we left off, thought Sakura, blushing at the thought of her and Sasuke doing more couple stuff. You know, I wouldn't even mind seeing Naruto a bit. Things have just gotten too quiet without the blonde knucklehead. Walking onto the main street leading towards the tower, Sakura was stopped in her tracks when she noticed the familiar midnight blue hair of Hinata and the girl clinging to the arm of some stranger. At first, Sakura's mind went completely blank at the prospect that Hinata could be clinging to some random person. However, upon closer inspection and seeing the spiky blonde hair that only one person in the village had that she knew, she soon realized who exactly it was. Naruto? Walking with Hinata at his side, Naruto heard a familiar voice call out to him. Turning around, he spotted his pink-haired teammate walking towards him. Sakura-chan? Hello, Hinata greeted Sakura, earning a smile and a wave from a happy Hinata. So when did you get back, Naruto? I don't know, maybe 20 minutes ago, replied Naruto. This earned a slight giggle out of Sakura. Figures. You just got back and already Hinata's found you, said Sakura, motioning to the pale Hyuga on Naruto's arm before sporting a slight blush of her own. So what do you think? Do I look more womanly to you? You look great, Sakura-chan commented Naruto. Sakura had also grown, yet still retaining that slim figure she had before Naruto left. Her outfit had undergone a slight change. She had exchanged her old cheapao dress for a red sleeveless shirt, a pink apron skirt, and a pair of black spandex shorts. She had retained the shorter haircut from before, her pink hair stopping at about neck length. Wow, Naruto's really changed over the years, hasn't he, thought Sakura. And surprisingly, he looks really good with that coat and I can actually see more of his dad in him. Hey Sakura-chan. Has Kakashi-sensei and team come back yet? Asked Naruto. Sadly no, sighed Sakura. While it was nice seeing Naruto again, she was still hoping that Sasuke wouldn't be too far behind his blonde teammate and rival. Oh ow ow ow. Get this cat off me. Naruto, Sakura, Hinata, and Jiraiya heard screams of terror coming from the other side of the mission hall door, meaning only one thing: some poor unfortunate Junon team had been assigned the capture Tora mission. Opening the door, Naruto was actually surprised to see who was on the other side. Konohamaru? Asked Naruto, looking at the heavily scratched Sarutobi Junon. Naruto Niiken, shouted Konohamaru. This drew all eyes to the door of the mission hall. Naruto Niiken, shouted both Moegi and Udon in unison. Hey, what's up guys? Asked Naruto. Naruto called a familiar voice. As Naruto's vision shifted to the person standing next to them, he saw a familiar and friendly face. Iruka-sensei, exclaimed Naruto before finally realizing something. Wait a second. If you're here and not in school or behind that desk, does that mean? It does. I am Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon's Jonin-sensei, smiled Iruka. Yes. You made it. I knew you'd make Jonin, exclaimed Naruto. I guess this means I'm buying the ramen tonight then. Ahem. Coughed a certain blonde-haired woman at the mission table, sending a glare towards the other blonde in the room. I'll deal with you in just a minute, Gaki. Naruto let out a slight gulp. Oh yeah, I can't believe I almost forgot about that, commented Sakura. I hope you enjoyed these past few years. Because I don't see you getting out of this one so easily. Don't worry Sakura-chan. I've got everything covered, said Naruto as he held up a scroll. No. 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 I don't want any more stupid chores. I want an incredible mission fit for a real ninja like me, shouted Konohamaru, making an X with his arms as Tsunade read off the list of possible D ranks. Why does this seem familiar? Mumbled Naruto. Really? This was the same thing you did that got us our first C-turned-A rank mission to the wave, reminded Sakura as Naruto. Yeah. Hey Naruto Nikan, can't you tell the Hokage that we're ready for a better mission? What's the worst that could happen? Asked Moegi. Let's see, you get attacked by an A-rank missing nin, nearly get killed in more than one way, and your teammates wind up in the hospital on the verge of death for weeks, summed up Naruto, causing both Moegi and Udon to pale. You know, when it came to C ranks, we never did get the best of luck, added Sakura. It took about 30 minutes to talk Konohamaru out of a C rank mission, again, and as Team Iruka was about to leave, that wasn't the end of Konohamaru's antics. Hey boss, check this out. Transform. A big poof of smoke enveloped Konohamaru, and as the smoke cleared, a busty brunette, wearing nothing but the remaining smoke, stood in Konohamaru's place. Sexy jutsu, said Konohamaru in a seductive voice, grabbing not only the self-proclaimed super pervert's perverted attention, but also two fuming women in the room. Konohamaru, what the hell is that? Growled Tsunade as Konohamaru transformed back. Boss taught it to me, exclaimed Konohamaru, pointing towards a now sweating Naruto as Tsunade's and Sakura's glares shifted to the blonde. After Tsunade and Sakura taught the blonde a valuable lesson in what is and isn't appropriate to teach Shinon, Naruto, Jiraiya, Hinata, Sakura, Tsunade, and Shizune had relocated to Tsunade's office. Alright Gaki. I'll jump straight to the point. It took us a month to get those goddamn seals off. Do you know how frustrating it was to clean up the monument every single day? Shouted Tsunade. Oh, it couldn't have been that bad, Bakken replied Naruto. One day, you made them all look like me, with wrinkles, shouted Tsunade. You've got 3 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't bust your ass back to doing D ranks. Oh come on Bakken, lighten up. Hey, I know what would make you feel better, exclaimed Naruto, unsealing a bottle of the Mount Myaboku fire sake from that scroll in his hand and setting it on Tsunade's desk. Gaki, is that what I think it is, and if it is, how the hell did you get some? Gasped Jiraiya. Is this? Stared Tsunade wide-eyed at the bottle. Mount Myaboku fire sake, strongest sake known to man, and toads, commented Naruto as Tsunade took a small sip from the bottle. You apologize, well. Fine, you're off the hook, commented Tsunade as Shizune's, Sakura's, and Jiraiya's jaws dropped. Shizune. Stop everything you're doing. We're drinking tonight. Why? Pleaded a desperate Shizune, practically on the verge of crying. Why did you have to do it? Anyways, it's nice to see you again, Naruto-kun. Naruto just grinned and rubbed the back of his head. Thanks, Shizune-chan. I hate to say it, but it's glad to have you back, Gaki. It's gotten almost too quiet here, said Tsunade. Hey, thanks Bakken, commented Naruto. And stop calling me Bakken, shouted Tsunade. It was at this point in time that Naruto grabbed the scroll he had around his neck. What's that? Just add a small prick of your blood to the circle in the corner, added Naruto. Looking at it, Tsunade realized that it was the Uzumaki family tree that the blonde had brought back with him from Uzu. She was wondering where Naruto was going with this until she noticed the name beside Shuichi, Mito. Sighing, Tsunade rubbed some blood on the circle and watched as a tree extended outwards from Mito, filling in the name of her mother and ending at her. Bakken. Cheered Naruto as he saw where Tsuan's name landed. You're not his real grandmother, but you're in the same generation and the relationship between the two of you is actually pretty damn close, commented Jiraiya. Tsunade sighed in defeat, but inside she couldn't help but feel her heart warm. She had always seen Naruto as a son or grandson, and this just showed that Naruto was in fact family in some sense, the closest thing to a living family member she had. Her sight was then momentarily drawn to the separate tree. Are these? I remember her now, Uzumaki Kairi. She was that girl I saved back at the beginning of the Second War. It's good to see she's still alive. Naruto nodded. I discovered a family of Uzumakis in the Land of Iron, commented Naruto. Oh, and speaking of which, I'll be taking my month of free ramen now. Tsunade's smile turned into a frown as she realized just exactly what Naruto was referring to. I'm not buying it, Gaki. How do I know you're not just trying to hustle some free ramen out of me? How do I know if you really did master that sword of yours? Trust me, Tsunade, Naruto's got that sword down, commented Jiraiya. I called in a favor with Mifune of the Land of Iron and he trained the Gaki for some time. Tsunade could feel this bet slipping from her quicker and quicker. but she was determined not to let it go that easy. So then I suppose he wouldn't mind a little test to prove it, suggested Tsunade. Hey, bring it Bakken. D-by-o. I've got just the opponent for you. But sadly he won't be back for another week or so, commented Tsunade. If you can get him to acknowledge you as a sword master, I'll admit you won the bet. Now there's something important I need to discuss with you and Jiraiya. Hinata and Sakura can stay, seeing as the secretive pieces of information they already know. Taking on a serious face, Tsunade pulled out a black book with a faint inscription of Iwagakure on it. Immediately, Jiraiya knew what this conversation would be about. Opening the book to a certain page, she handed it to Naruto. Read. The first thing Naruto saw before he began reading was a picture of himself, accompanied by the following text. Name, Uzumaki Naruto. Age, 15 to 17. Gender, male. Village, Konoha. Rank, Chunin. Skill level, A. Assumed to be Jonin level in Ninjutsu, high Chunin in Taijutsu. Genjutsu skills are unknown. Kenjutsu skills are also assumed to be Jonin level. Believed to be a Fun master. Bounty, 15 million Ryo. Wanted by Iwagakure for the murder of 15 Genin, 3 Anbu, and Han of the Steam Armor. Other notes, it should be assumed that he is a member of the late Uzumaki clan and as such has knowledge of their few Ninjutsu abilities. His appearance closely resembles that of the Yondaime Hokage, who he is believed to be closely related to. It is also believed that he is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune and that he has an exceptional level of control over its powers. Approach with extreme caution. One thought was going through Jiraiya's head right now. Shit, I am aware of the 15 Genin, but do the two of you mind explaining the 3 Anbu and Han? Glared Tsunade. Sighing, Naruto and Jiraiya gave Tsunade the story of the encounter between Han and themselves. So somehow Iwa came to this conclusion, said Tsunade, now reaching for that bottle of sake. I had been hoping that your training trip would be a rather quiet one, but after receiving the report regarding the Yuki incident, I should have known better and asked you two to stay closer to home. Even if that was the case, Iwa would still be on his tail. It appears as if they pieced together enough pieces to realize just who he was, added Jiraiya. The good thing that came out of this was that we were able to eliminate 4 of Iwa's stronger ninja. So what's going to happen, Bakken? Asked Naruto. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do. Any village can put anyone in their own bingo book and there's nothing that I'm willing to do to petition to Iwa to have you removed. However, you're going to have to realize now that you're in the books, with a rather high bounty on your head, and people will think of you as more than just some snot-nosed brat. If anyone allied with Iwa sees you, then there is a likely chance that they will try and kill you, commented Tsunade. This is something that ninja have to deal with, and I was hoping it would be a bit longer before this was something you'd have to deal with, but that's no longer the case. And if it makes you feel any better, you're not the only one in the books. Sasuke found his way into Kumo's books because a certain Cyclops taught him one of Kumo's secret jutsus. And both Sasuke and Sakura are in Iwa's books for the 15 Genin as well, although their bounties aren't nearly as high as yours, seeing as they didn't kill 4 of Iwa's strongest ninja. I see, I'll be careful then, replied Naruto. Wait, Sasuke's in Kumo's book? He is, and you'd better be careful. The last thing I want is for those bastards to have their way and get hold of you, replied Tsunade. So do you know when Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei are going to get back? Asked Naruto. Why? You eager to get back to mission work? Asked Tsunade, getting a grin from Naruto. I just sent a note to the base Kakashi and Sasuke are currently at to have them recalled home in a week, so you and Sakura have until then before you and your team resumes work. Naruto and Sakura nodded. That's everything. I'll get more details about your trip from Jiraiya, but is there anything you still need? Ask her about those notes. Don't worry, I was, responded Naruto. Hey Bakken. During my trip, when my seal was unlocked, I actually met my parents, commented Naruto, surprising Tsunade, Sakura, and Hinata. I kind of talked with them for a bit, and Kaken mentioned that she had some old jutsu notes for a few seals she was working on. I think she said they were in a red notebook of hers. Have you seen that around at all? In reality, Naruto wanted the notebook to help him start searching for where Hikari might be sealed, but he didn't exactly lie, as there were in fact some notes in his mother's notebook on seals. Your parents' house was destroyed during the attack 15 years ago. Sarutobi-sensei does have a few boxes of possessions that were recovered though, but you won't be getting those until you turn 16, said Tsunade, receiving a disappointed look from Naruto. How bad do you need that notebook? Pretty bad, Bakken. Is there anything you can do? Asked Naruto. I'll think about it. I promise though you'll get them by the time you turn 16, but if it's just a notebook, I'll see what I can dig up, said Tsunade. Thanks Bakken, replied Naruto. Now get out of here. The pervert and I have a few things we need to talk about, said Tsunade. Naruto, Sakura, And Hinata bowed before leaving Tsunade and Jiraiya alone. "Okay Haim, have you found anything?" asked Jiraiya. "I did, and you're not going to like it," said Tsunade, pulling out a bottle of sake. This was going to be a long talk. "Well, would you look at who it is?" Walking back through the streets, Naruto turned around to the familiar sight of a certain lazy man and a troublesome blonde woman. "Shikamaru? And is that Tamari with you? You two out on another date?" "PFT, you must be joking, right?" replied Tamari. "Like I would ever go out with this lazy ass." "That's not how it was when I saw you two cuddling with each other at the festival before I left," retorted Naruto, earning a sigh of defeat from Tamari. Troublesome blonde sighed Shikamaru. "What was that, Shikakun?" glared Temaru before turning back to Naruto. "It's not that. There are the Chunin exams being held in Sunasun and I'm just here to check up on who Konoha is sending." "Chunin exams, huh?" said Naruto. "You know, that reminds me, who else has made Chunin?" "Actually, everyone from our class has made Chunin and so has Fu. Neji and Haku were just named Jonin recently during the Jonin exams, and Tamari and Kankuro are also Jonin as well," answered Shikamaru. "Wow. Hey, what about Gaara then?" asked Naruto. Suna, a robbed redhead with the kanji for love tattooed on his head, overlooked the city from a large balcony. As he was looking over the city, a half-masked shinobi appeared behind him. "Kaze Kage-sama." The meeting as soon announced the masked shinobi. "Okay," was all the Kaze Kage said before turning around into the meeting hall. That Kaze Kage was Gaara. "Konoha, I see, so Gaara's the Kaze Kage," said a dazed Naruto. "Honestly, I'm glad for him and I can't wait to work with him once I take Baku's hat." "That reminds me, I've still got your hat," commented Hinata. Naruto shot her a slightly confused look before remembering that he had left his great-great-grandfather's old hat with Hinata before leaving. "Really? You still have it?" exclaimed Naruto. "Why would you think I didn't? Of course I'd look after it and not let anything happen to it," said Hinata. "It's not that. I was afraid that thing would fall apart. It was rather tattered and it had to be at least a century old," replied the blonde. "I may have fixed it up a little," admitted Hinata. "Seriously? That's awesome. You're the best," exclaimed Naruto. "We'll leave you guys alone. Besides, we've gotta go finish some troublesome preparations for the exam," commented Shikamaru before he and Tamari started to walk away. "Oh, and welcome home, Naruto. Stop by barbecue some evening. I'm sure Asuma-sensei, Ino and Kuuji would like to see you again." "That's great. Maybe tomorrow night. I already promised a bowl of ramen to Iruka-sensei tonight," said Naruto. "I still can't believe Iruka-sensei became a Jonin. I actually saw his skills and he's definitely Jonin level, but I never would have imagined he'd stop teaching," commented Sakura. "Well, I'm heading off for as well. I've still got some work at the hospital to do, so I'll see you later, Naruto." "And I guess that just leaves the two of us," said Naruto, pulling Hinata closer and giving her a quick peck on the cheek, getting a sweet bush and giggle out of Hinata. "Yeah, something was definitely going on with Sensei," commented Jiraiya. "I want to say that he truly cared about Naruto," commented Tsunade. "And based on what I found, that sounded like the case. He helped Naruto out a lot once the Gaki was kicked out of the orphanage, getting him set up in a decent apartment, checking up on him rather often, and even making sure there was a trustworthy Anbu watch on him. But that Anbu watch is kind of what bothers me." On the night of October 10th, the first time Naruto tried to attend the Kyuubi festival out of curiosity when he just turned 6, the Anbu guard just completely abandoned him. I checked the records and Sensei was furious. He had the Anbu in prison for what was supposed to be a life term. The following year was better, although Naruto did still get in trouble, but the Anbu responded fairly quickly to prevent any major injuries. The year after, Naruto just stayed out of sight, which was probably a good thing. But it's after that where I got confused. About 6 months later, it's like Sensei just completely gave up on watching Naruto. He pulled the Anbu guard and the punishments for those who harmed Naruto lessened to what was really nothing more than a slap on the wrist. He even let the Anbu who were supposed to be in jail for life out early. Normally, it seems as if the village just tended to ignore Naruto. But there were always a few minor incidents with some drunken people and of course the date of the Kyuubi festival where Sensei's reactions were less than appropriate. There were a small group on Anbu who watched Naruto on their off time, not under Sensei's command, but even they couldn't protect him all the time considering they had other duties to the village. "Who were these Anbu?" asked Jiraiya. "Kakashi, Tenzo, Uzuki Yugao, Hayate Gekko, and Mabaroshi Kisuke," answered Tsunade. I already talked to them except for Hinata because of well, you know, and they mentioned that they were only able to watch the Gaki off duty and that there were times where he was left unguarded. They couldn't quite understand why no one was looking after Naruto anymore and they wanted to make sure that he at least had someone keeping an eye out for his safety. But that still doesn't answer why Sensei practically left Naruto on his own. I mean sure, Sensei checked up on Naruto maybe once or twice a month, but that was nothing compared to what he used to do. When did you say this happened? Asked Jiraiya now in deep thought. May 2nd when Naruto was 8 was when Sensei began to pull the Anbu watch from him and started distancing himself from Naruto, said Tsunade. I don't know why but something happened to Sensei. I just feel it. May 2nd. There was something that happened just before then, said Jiraiya, trying to recall what he was thinking of. The Uchiha massacre happened a few weeks before that, said Tsunade, answering Jiraiya's question. But that shouldn't mean anything. No, it shouldn't, said Jiraiya. But that doesn't mean we should toss aside the possibility that something else happened. So did anything else happen to Sensei after that? I hate to put it this way, but that's when Sensei became weak, said Tsunade. It was after that the civilian council slowly began gaining influence in the workings of the village, even to the point where they were able to have some say in shinobi affairs, which as we both know never should have happened. One of the most significant victories of theirs was to gain control over the academy, and then the standards were lowered to give their children a better chance at becoming shinobi, which only hurt our new Jinan. I mean come on, 3 basic jutsus? That's not going to do much to prepare our Jinan. No, it's not. So what have you managed to get done about them? Asked Jiraiya, getting a grin out of Tsunade. Thankfully, with the help of the most recent addition to the civilian council, I've been able to wrestle a great deal of power back from them, said Tsunade. Oh ho? So who is this agent of yours? Asked Jiraiya. Haruno Kazashi, answered Tsunade. I approached him just before the last election for the 2 representative seats on the council and he agreed to run for one of them, winning the seat. He was a shinobi of Chunin rank, although he actually wasn't too far off of Jonin, in this village, who lost the ability to mold chakra in his arms due to an injury he suffered in the 3rd Shinobi War. It took years to rehabilitate him to the point where he could regain some chakra molding abilities in his arm. But he decided to retire to a civilian life and focus on raising his daughter and family instead. He agrees that there are some powers that the civilian council just shouldn't have and has sided a lot with me and the shinobi council in getting back many of those powers. Well, that certainly is interesting, said Jiraiya. However, one person shouldn't have been enough to shift the power of the council. While that is true, it also helped that Hiyashi and a few of the other clan heads have another member of the council wrapped around their fingers thanks to a few strategic investments of their clan's assets, explained Tsunade. Kazashi's enough to maintain the power, but if we need enough to reclaim a certain power from those civilians, we just have the clan heads pull a few strings. I hope the academy's back under shinobi control? Asked Jiraiya. The standards of the academy were one of the biggest things on Jiraiya's mind, seeing as the academy had a huge impact on the future generations of Konoha's shinobi. Oh yeah. And quite a few changes have been made to it, said Tsunade. Ebisu's taken over as the head of the academy and he's actually done an excellent job at reshaping it into something that better prepares our Jinan. I will say, that certainly was an interesting trip you had there, Naruto, said Hiyashi as he took a sip of his tea. Neji Niasen, you saw Naruto-kun and you didn't say anything? Asked Atiri Hinata. I deeply am sorry, Hinata-sama, but... Neji was cut off by Hiyashi. Before we go any further on that subject, at least allow me to make sure we have our privacy, said Hiyashi as he made sure the doors were locked and the privacy seals in his home were active. Hinata, this was kept a secret for a reason. The elders absolutely cannot find out about this, which is why I figured that it was best kept between myself and Neji for the moment. But seeing as Naruto's home, I'm afraid he's going to tell you eventually. As Hiyashi motioned to his nephew, Neji removed his own headband and the medical tape that was underneath it, revealing the seal on his head that Hinata had come to hate. But what Neji did next was a pleasant surprise. Taking a rag dipped in alcohol, Neji wiped it across his forehead and the seal actually came off. Niasen, is it really? Gasped a surprised Hinata. It is. That's why I went to see Naruto, to have my seal removed, said Neji. I am sorry, but uncle's right. If the elders found out about this too soon, then the entire branch family would be in danger. It's okay. I understand. I'm just happy now that you've got that seal removed, chirped Hinata before turning to Naruto and planting a big kiss on Naruto's lips. Hiyashi wanted to object to this display of affection, but he would give the blonde this one as Naruto was the one who removed the seal from his nephew's head. And thank you so much for helping Neji Niasen. Hinata would have said more, but with her father struggling so much to contain himself while she kissed Naruto, she didn't want to push it. Ahem, coughed Hiyashi. If I may ask, Naruto, May I see the seal you used? I'm afraid it's not actually a permanent solution to removing the seal, but it did do the trick, said Naruto, pulling out his book and unsealing the regression seal scroll. It only took a few seconds of Hiyashi looking at it for the Hyuga head to become lost and utterly confused. Naruto, what is this? Asked Hiyashi. While not a master to Jiraiya's standards, I do consider myself to be fairly well versed in Fuinjutsu, and even this is well beyond my level of understanding. What exactly is this seal? It's one of those main family techniques of the Uzumaki clan that you mentioned, said Naruto. It's called the regression seal. Hiyashi grew wide-eyed upon hearing the name of the seal. So it really does exist? What do you mean, father? Asked a confused Hinata. There were rumors out of Uzu before the start of the Second War. I was just a small child at the time, but I remember the stories told to me from Jiraiya-sensei. If I'm correct, that seal was one of the main reasons that provoked Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri into attacking and destroying Uzu, explained Hiyashi. Hinata, I know you've been looking a little bit more into Fuinjutsu, but this seal is beyond the comprehension of all but a select few people in the world, Naruto being one of those few. You see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this seal actually has the power to turn back time. That's kind of right, but that would be actual time travel. The regression seal does what its name says. It reverts the temporal state of something, a seal or even a person. If that thing is reverted far enough to the point before its creation, then it simply ceases to exist, explained Naruto. That's what I did to Neji's seal. I turned back Neji's seal to the point before it was applied, meaning that it never was applied to him in the first place. Okay, who are you and what have you done with Naruto? Asked Neji. What do you mean? I am Naruto, replied Naruto. Yes, but what you just said was something that a failure like Naruto would never understand, joked Neji, causing Naruto to pout. Of course it helps that your father was an expert in this sort of stuff. I was right about what I said to you during the Chunin exams the first time. About those who become Hokage are born into that destiny. Wasn't I? How? Replied a shocked Naruto as he quickly realized what Neji was referring to, his expression answering Neji's question for him. I learned when Uncle here mistook you for him. Honestly, I'm also surprised that no one noticed. You actually look a lot like him, said Neji. Then do you understand why that was kept a secret as well? Asked Hiyashi, still slightly stunned from Neji's deduction. Although now that Iwa placed Naruto in their bingo book, it's only a matter of time before that secret's out. I can't wait to see the looks on the elders' faces when they realize Naruto is Minato's son. I do. But if I may ask, who else knows? Asked Neji. Bakken, Shizune Nijin, Uro Senin, Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke-team, Sakura-chan, Hinata-chan, and Tucci, said Naruto. Although I wouldn't be surprised if a few other people knew, and I'd be willing to bet that Shikamaru's figured it out, but it'd be too troublesome for him to say anything. This earned a giggle out of Hinata for Naruto's Shikamaru imitation. Now, as for that seal, it's not a practical solution as I need to use the Kyuubi's chakra to regress any seal older than maybe 2 years, and even going up to the 12 years that was required for Neji practically drained the furball of his chakra as well, explained Naruto. Unless it's of the utmost importance, Neji's seal is the only one I am removing that way. No, I understand. I just can't believe the chakra cost for that seal is so large, but considering what it does, I can understand, commented Hiyashi. Besides, now that Neji is freed from the seal, I can move forward with my plans. If you don't mind me asking, how long do you anticipate it will be before Neji can challenge one of the elders? Asked Naruto. The elders are some of the strongest individuals in this clan. However, seeing as the limiting factors of the seal have also been removed from Neji, I estimate about 10 months before I have Neji up to the level he needs to be in order to fight against Iroh, replied Hiyashi. I think I see. So you're going to have Neji Niazen take over Iroh's place on the council? Asked Hinata. Yes, and once that happens, I will be able to limit the elder's influence until preferably Doranji takes over for his father, commented Neji. So Doranji-san's in on this too? Asked Hinata. He is. He has witnessed the caged bird seal tear apart the families in this clan, and as you know, he has a 2-year-old daughter who will most likely be sealed when she turns 4. He does not want to see his own daughter and family suffer under the seal, explained Hiyashi, getting a nod of understanding from Hinata. If everything works out right, Neji will take Iroh's seat before that happens, and he will be able to postpone that sealing long enough for Doranji to take over. Once that happens, my father won't have much room to stop the changes we will be making to the clan, one of which will be the complete abolition of the caged bird seal. I know it will mean that our bloodline is more vulnerable, but it will require the clan to become stronger as a whole in order to protect it, something that will prove beneficial to both us and Konoha. So anyways, what's happened while I've been gone? Asked Naruto, changing the subject and prompting Hiyashi to drop the privacy seals. It had somehow been timed perfectly that the moment Hiyashi dropped the seals, a younger Hyuga girl came through the door. "Is that?" asked Naruto. "Naruto Niasen," exclaimed Hanabi. "Hey Hanabi, long time no see. And I see you've grown," said Naruto as his attention was drawn to what was sitting on Hanabi's forehead. "Is that?" "Yep. I'm a ninja now," exclaimed the 10-year-old Hyuga. "But I thought you still had another year," asked a confused Naruto. "Hanabi graduated early," explained Hinata. "I still don't know the full story, and something tells me I don't want to know. But I think one of the reasons had something to do with Hinata agreeing letting Hanabi sign the summoning contract when she graduated the academy. Once Hinata offered her sister that, Hanabi immediately took the test to be moved into the graduating class," said Hiyashi. "That happened last year, and she just graduated about a month ago. And it would actually be 2 more years in the academy. Some changes were made to the academy since you left. One such change was the addition of an extra year. Where you all graduated at the age of 11, they now graduate at the age of 12. Although Hanabi somehow got out of there 2 years early, and she still won't tell me what else happened that allowed her to get 2 years ahead. I understand you are getting dinner with Iruka-san earlier tonight, so I am sure he will tell you everything better than I can." "Wow, that's great Hanabi. Who's your sensei?" Naruto would soon come to regret asking that question as a kunai sailed into the room, nicking the blonde's cheek and causing a trickle of blood to drip down his cheek. Well, if it ain't the gaki," grinned a certain purple-haired kunoichi as she licked the blood from Naruto's cheek, causing a shiver to crawl down Naruto's spine. "Anko-sensei, don't scare Naruto Niasen like that," exclaimed Hanabi. "Anko's your sensei?" shivered Naruto, now feeling sorry for the Hyuga Jinan. "Oh, so you're Naruto Niasen now? It's like you're part of the family," grinned Anko, looking over to Hinata. "So how long before I see a little blonde Hyugas running around the village?" "K kids? W within Naruto-kun?" Despite greatly improving over the years, the very thought of having children with Naruto was still too much for poor Hinata, and what happened next really shouldn't be too surprising, even if she had improved greatly over the years. He turned red and fainted. "I can assure you Anko, there will be no blonde Hyugas," replied Hiyashi, saving the already fainted Hinata and the increasingly red Naruto. "At least not yet," completed Anko. "Perhaps it is still quite a few years too soon for that, but it's still fun to mess with them." "So what's the real purpose of you being here? I take it that you're not here just to harass my daughter?" questioned Hiyashi. "What? I would never harass anyone," grinned Anko with a too innocent smile and a distinct hint of sarcasm in her voice. "We've got our first C-rank mission tomorrow and we're going to be away for at least a week. So make sure you're ready to go at the gate by 8 a.m. Crackers." "My name's not Crackers. It's Hanabi," argued Hanabi. "Sure, whatever. Just be at the gate by 8 o'clock or else you know what will happen," grinned Anko sadistically, causing Hanabi to shiver. With that, Anko made a quick exit, but not before snagging some of the sweets off the table. Hiyashi sighed as he placed his hand over his head. "Why do I have a feeling Anko was one of the reasons Hanabi graduated early? Why do I think it happened just so she could torment me?" A slight moan was heard as Hinata regained consciousness. "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty," chirped Naruto. "Oh no. I actually fainted. I haven't done that around Naruto-kun in a long time, but whenever Anko comes around, I just can't help it," thought Hinata. "So Hanabi, who's on your team?" asked Naruto. "Well, there's this girl named Katami. She's okay, she's a little quiet and keeps to herself, but she's a good kunoichi. And then there's boy named Toshi. However, he's kind of weird," commented Hanabi. "He's actually a Nara, but he's not a lazy bum like I thought all Naras are supposed to be." "Naruto-kun, you'll find this interesting. Hanabi got on the same team you were on. The top boy, top girl, and Dobi of the class," giggled Hinata. "And you know what else?" "Don't you tell him Nizen," shouted Hanabi. "Hanabi was the class Dobi," replied Neji, getting Hanabi's full glare. "It seems as if the main family is full of disappointments." With this, Neji let out a slight grin to show that he was only joking. "Yeah, well I was missing 2 years worth of my grade and even then I still almost beat out Konohamaru," exclaimed Hanabi, crossing her arms and shifting her gaze away from everyone. Hinata whispered something into Naruto's ears and the blonde could only help but laugh. This earned the couple a glare from the younger Hyuga, causing them both to laugh. "Maybe I should stop by and see if the Flaming Leaf Inn has room for a reservation of 4," joked Naruto. "Oh, that reminds me. Uro-senin got me some dance lessons while we were in Yuki. So what do you say, Hinata-chan?" This caused Hinata to blush deeply at the thought of her and Naruto dancing together, but was stopped in her thoughts when Neji spoke up. "I'm sorry to say, but ever since that restaurant reopened, the dinner and dance idea that Rikinu-san had was a huge hit throughout Konoha. If you don't have a reservation now, then I doubt you'll be getting one for the next 3 months." "What? 3 months? Asked a now disappointed Naruto. Oh man. And I was actually looking forward to that. Fortunately for you, you and Hinata-sama do in fact have a reservation, said Neji. We do? But how? I don't remember making one, said Naruto, now confused. Once I was able to get a feel for how much longer it would be before you got back, I made a reservation in your name and it appears as if I was correct in the date I picked. Consider it a small token of my thanks, said Neji. Really? Wow, Neji. Thank you, replied Naruto. Don't mention it. It's for Friday evening at 7 p.m. The dress is not as strict as it used to be, but I would still recommend a coat. Most importantly though, wear something you can move in as well, said Neji. Some time passed and Naruto found that sadly, it was time to leave as he had promised ramen to Iruka-sensei that night. Naruto-kun called out Hinata before Naruto had a chance to leave. Stop by training ground 8 tomorrow morning. We just got back from a mission and we usually meet in the mornings on our day off and I'm sure everyone would like to see you. That sounds great, Hinata-chan. I'll see you tomorrow and maybe after we can get lunch, waved Naruto. Hey old man, exclaimed Naruto as he walked into Ichiraku and took a seat on the stool next to where Iruka was already sitting. Who are you calling old? Shouted Tucci as he turned around to see a familiar blonde sitting at his bar. Well, I'll be. Ayame, get out here. What? Shouted what sounded to be a frustrated Ayame as she came out from the back of the shop, only to see the same blonde that she had missed for the past 2 years sitting at the bar. Naruto-kun? Is that really you? Sure is. Good to see you again. Ayame Nichan, smiled Naruto. And I see you dragged this lazy ass with you, said Ayame pointing to Iruka. Ever since he got his promotion, he's been stopping by less and less. It's like Iruka-kun doesn't want to see me anymore. I already said I was sorry, Ayame-chan. I've been busy and Konohamaru usually finds me here, cried Iruka. He's been begging me for the past 2 weeks for a mission more fitting for a ninja of his stature. Iruka-kun? Ayame-chan? Thought Naruto before it finally clicked. So Iruka-sensei, Ayame Nichan, how long have you two been, you know? Naruto held up his pinky, getting a blush out of the two. A little over 6 months now, replied Ayame. It was because of her that I was able to make it through the Jonin trial, said Iruka. They were tough. Much tougher than the Chunin exams. Speaking of which, what's it like being a Jonin? Asked Naruto. Well, I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss the academy. Once I got my new rank, I was pulled from teaching. But I can't complain seeing as I actually got a Jonin team this year, and despite Konohamaru's complaining, I really do enjoy it. It's like I'm teaching yet I'm a Jonin. You know, you should give Konohamaru a little more credit. What makes you think he's not ready for a C rank mission? Asked Naruto. I heard Anko's team just got their first C rank. Yes, but she's got the stacked team. She got the 2 best students from the class and the Dobi is only the Dobi because she graduated 2 years early. I've been doing my best to get my team ready, but Konohamaru can still just barely make 3 clones. I mean, I believe in him, but 3 clones is just barely passing the academy, and if that's all he can do then I don't think he's ready for a more difficult mission, explained Iruka. You of all people should know better than to see the clone jutsu as a barrier. Besides, what kind of clones do you think he's using? Asked Naruto with a hinting grin on his face. Well, the normal clone jutsu, I would imagine. Wait, now that I think about it. Iruka finally realized what Naruto was getting at. He's not using shadow clones, is he? I would imagine he is. Before I left, he was just barely able to make one. But it was in fact a shadow clone. That's why he can only make 3, is because he still has relatively low chakra reserves for the jutsu. But I'll bet you that he's been using shadow clones instead of the regular ones, explained Naruto. And didn't I give him that book on chakra nature manipulation? You did, but it only gave the exercises to train elemental manipulation. There weren't any jutsus in there, and Konohamaru's almost as afraid of libraries as you were, joked Iruka. Naruto reached into his back pouch, pulled out a scroll and unsealed a small scroll from within that scroll. Here, this one should make him happy. It's the Great Fireball Jutsu, a simple fire jutsu but one I believe he can do without too much effort. Tell him that if he gets it down, you'll let him take on a C rank mission and I guarantee you he'll have it by week's end, said Naruto. I don't know why, but I feel that Konohamaru's a lot like me. He'll surprise you and I'm sure he'll even surprise me at some point down the road. You know, I think you're right about that, said Iruka, taking the scroll from Naruto. It's just he really is a lot like you. Hell, he even became the class prankster after you left. Perhaps he reminded me so much of you that I didn't want him to get in over his head like you guys did. Remember all those C-turned-A missions? Oh come on, how bad could it really be? But I do think that if you give him a challenge, He'll come through just fine, said Naruto. So anyways, tell me a bit about your trip and how strong you've become, asked Iruka. One long story, about a dozen bowls of ramen, and a happy Tucci for having his best customer back later. Wow, you really have been busy. I heard a little bit about your adventures in Yuki, but I never imagined them like that, said Iruka. I still can't believe that you helped an actress who was really a princess take back the throne of her kingdom. Is it really that hard to believe? Asked Naruto, before his thoughts drifted onto something else. Hold on, no damn it. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Asked Ayame. I forgot to get Koyuki's autograph, cried Naruto as anime-style tears flowed from his eyes. Iruka and Ayame just sighed at this. Oi, Naruto. There's something I do need to talk to your former teacher about. Or at least something you need to tell him, called out Kurama. Listening to what Kurama was telling him, Naruto just nodded. Looking around, he realized that no one else was around, which was a good thing. Hey Iruka-sensei, there's something I want to tell you. Just please bear with me. What is it? Asked Iruka. It's about the Kyuubi, replied Naruto, as he watched Iruka's look. I know that your parents died in the Kyuubi attack, and I'm sorry that happened, and so is he. What are you talking about? Look, over the trip, I've actually gotten to know Kurama, the Kyuubi, and we've actually become good friends. What I'm trying to say is that he didn't mean to attack the village and he is sorry for all the people he killed, especially your parents, said Naruto. What do you mean sorry? He attacks the village, kills hundreds of people, and thinks he can just say he's sorry? Lashed out Iruka. Iruka-sensei. It honestly wasn't his fault. If you don't believe me, then check with the Hokage. But on that night, there was someone controlling him. If he had his way, he would have just stayed away from the village. My dad fought the man controlling him and knew the day would come when that man would return. He knew that I would need Kurama's powers to defeat him, so he sealed Kurama inside me on that night, said Naruto, deciding to let the one he looked to as an older brother in on his secrets. Your dad? Asked Iruka, now a bit confused, but then it clicked as Iruka looked up towards the Hokage monument. No, it can't be. He's really your father? He is. It's supposed to be a secret still. But you deserve the truth, and if there's anyone who I need to understand, it's you, said Naruto. Again, if you don't believe me, ask Tsunade Bakken. I swear that Kurama didn't mean to kill your parents or all those villages, and he's helping me out as a way to make up for it. I won't forgive him for the fact that he attacked Jet, but I'll accept that perhaps there's something more to what happened on that night, said Iruka after thinking about it for a bit. So who is it that really attacked Konoha? It's going to be hard to believe, but my dad thought it was Uchiha Madara, said Naruto, earning a shocked look from Iruka. I'm not entirely sure either, but I do know that if this man was strong enough to control Kurama, then he is a dangerous threat. Again, Bakken can tell you the whole story, and she has the final letters from my dad that tell a bit more about this threat before he died in the sealing process. I see. And thank you, Naruto, replied Iruka. The next morning, at Training Ground 8, Team Kurenai had gathered together for a quick morning training session before Akamaru caught wind of a familiar scent that was approaching the training ground. When everyone turned around to see who it was, they were all surprised to see a spiky blonde wearing a long red coat walking over towards them. Is that? Asked Kiba, getting a nod from Hinata. Is that really you, Naruto? Wow, you've grown. Me? If that dog you're riding is who I think it is, then I'm not the one who's grown, said Naruto, pointing at the white dog that Kiba was riding on. What do you mean? This is Akamaru, replied Kiba. Yeah, and before I left, he was the one who would ride on you, not the other way around, pointed Naruto. You know, I've never really noticed. I mean, sure, he's grown, but I guess that's just because the two of us practically grew up together that it wasn't as surprising to me as it was to you, replied Kiba. Hello, Naruto-san, spoke a hooded person whose entire body was mostly covered, standing with Team 8. Naruto took a moment to examine the hooded person. That voice and those sunglasses, thought Naruto. Shino, it appears that you did not forget about me. Though it did take you longer than the others to realize who I was, spoke Shino as Naruto's sweat dropped. Well, when you're covered up like that, it is kind of hard to see who it is under that hood, replied Naruto. Perhaps. Welcome home, Naruto-san, said Shino. Immediately, Naruto jumped away just in time to avoid another person slam the ground that he was previously standing on. As Naruto gripped the hilt of his sword, he relaxed his guard the moment he saw the familiar green hair. Damn, almost had you, grunted Fu. Naruto grinned at the green-haired ex-Taki Kunoichi. Fu was still as tan as Naruto had remembered her, and while her outfit was similar, it had undergone a few small changes. The first was that while her white top still cut off just above the stomach, still exposing her midsection and giving her wings room to grow from. It wasn't quite as loose as it used to be, and Naruto's inner pervert was already telling him that while she was nowhere near Hinata, Fu wasn't quite as flat as she used to be. The top also has sleeves on them that came down in a point to cover the backside of her hand. The skirt was a bit longer as well, going to about knee length but with a slit running halfway up the side for increased mobility. Her hair was still mint green and at neck length with a red clip in it. She also had a red belt around her waist that held in what appeared to be two longer curved daggers. While Naruto couldn't tell at first sight, those blades were composed of chakra-conducting metal that could channel either the wind or lightning natures she had, courtesy of Chomei's chakra mixing with her own. "Well, it looks like I'm not the only one with tails in the village anymore," commented Fu. "So how have you been, Fu?" asked Naruto. "Oh, this place is so much better than Taki. And Shina-kun's family has been more than welcoming of me," smiled Fu. "Even those who do know don't seem to mind. It also is nice that the jonin I was assigned under here actually cares about my skills. I'm glad for you. It's nice to know that you can actually have some real friends backing you all the way," said Naruto. "Hey Hinata-chan, wanna get some lunch? The dango shop is Anko free because the crazy snake lady is out on a mission." Hinata smiled as Naruto was being more considerate for her sweeter taste, and of course she wasn't going to say no to lunch with Naruto. However, before she could walk away with Naruto, Kiba had pulled the blonde aside for a quick word. "Look Naruto, I know I've caused some problems for you and Hinata in the past and I just wanted to apologize. However, I have come to see her as a sister to me, so you had better take care of her or else I don't care how strong you've gotten but I'll still kick your ass," said Kiba. "Take a place in line behind Hiyashi, Neji, Kurenai-sensei, the furball fox that lives in my head, and I'm sure Baken's somewhere in there," replied Naruto to Kiba's little threat. "But anyways, thanks Kiba. I know that deep down you do care for her." "So we're cool?" asked Kiba. "Yeah, we are," answered Naruto before turning back to Hinata. Having satisfied their sweet tooth, Naruto and Hinata were now walking through town. They were on their way to a solitary training ground of their own, both of them interested in where the other one was, but one sight caught their eyes. There, standing on a bridge and leaning over the railing, was a familiar spandex-clad chunin. Only something looked wrong. "Hey bushy brows!" called out Naruto as he waved to Lee, only to get no response from the eyebrowed ninja. As Naruto walked closer to Lee, he could see his comrade, holding a few flowers in his hand as he was plucking the petals off and letting them fall into the river. The usually youthful boy looked saddened and depressed. "Lee? Is something wrong, Naruto-kun?" asked Lee, finally picking his head up to notice that he had company. "You're back?" "Yeah, I just got back yesterday." "What's wrong? You look like they were all sold out of spandex tracksuits," said Naruto. "No, it's nothing like that. It's just..." Lee let out a sigh. "Naruto-kun, do you think I'm a worthless failure?" What got that sort of thought into your head? You're one of the best ninja I know, T-by-O!" exclaimed Naruto. Lee was about to say something but he just slowly began to walk away. "Huh? Hey Lee? Lee?" Naruto's voice didn't seem to reach Lee's ears. A few moments after Lee had disappeared from sight, Sakura came running onto the scene. "Naruto, Hinata, have either of you seen Lee?" asked the pink cherry blossom. "Hey Sakura-chan. Yeah, he was just here but something seemed wrong. His flames of youth aren't burning brightly today," replied Naruto, a shiver running down his spine that he had actually said that. Somewhere else, a cold chill ran through a certain one-eyed jonin as he picked his gaze up from a certain red-covered book that was Icha Violence. "Why do I have a bad feeling one of my students has been corrupted?" Across from him stood a raven-haired boy, approximately 15 years in age, who had just landed from performing an advanced kunai deflection exercise that he had once witnessed his brother perform. All 10 kunai hit the center of their targets, including the difficult hidden targets. The boy turned to his teacher and just shrugged before pulling out an identical book of his own. "You're probably right. I'm just imagining things," said the one-eyed scarecrow. "You know, the ending to this volume is actually much better than that of Icha Paradise," thought the raven-haired boy. "Back in Konoha, Sakura-san, do you know what happened to Lee-san?" asked Hinata. "I think I've got a pretty good idea," said Sakura. "Do you remember Kurama Yakumo?" After a few moments, Naruto nodded, having met the girl once after Hinata and her team returned along from a mission regarding the girl. He remembered that she had some rather powerful genjutsu abilities that led to the manifestation of a demon in her own psyche, but the demon was dealt with during that mission. "A little bit," replied Naruto. Hinata nodded, actually knowing the young Kurama heiress rather well thanks to Kurenai-sensei. "What's she have to do with Lee?" "Sakura-san, do you know what's wrong with Lee-san?" asked Hinata. Both her and Naruto had encountered Lee on their way to a training ground and Lee looked to be missing something significant, his youth. "I've got a pretty good idea," replied Sakura. Do you remember Kurama Yakumo? Hinata nodded instantly, knowing the girl rather well thanks to Kurenai-sensei. She was an incredibly powerful genjutsu user who had been placed under Kurenai's tutelage in the early years until it was determined that Yakumo's powers had led to the birth of a demon in Yakumo's psyche. This forced Kurenai and the Hokage to have her powers sealed until a few years later when a mission by Team 8 led to the separation of Yakumo's demon personality and her powers, allowing her to access her genjutsu abilities without fear of the demon personality taking over. A little bit, replied Naruto. He had met the girl once or twice thanks to Hinata, and he had heard the stories from his girlfriend. What does she have to do with Lee? Did she call him a loser or something? Sakura shook her head. It's a rather long story, we might want to go find a seat while I tell you. Flashback. For a certain green spandex-clad chunin, today was a normal day, filled with youthful training. As Lee was on his 105th lap through Konoha, he passed by a young girl sitting on a bench, looking rather down. For some reason, Lee was immediately drawn to said girl. She was rather pretty, possessing brown hair and a fair complexion. But her looks weren't what caught Lee's attention. For some reason, Lee could feel that this girl's youthful spark was on the verge of fading into nothing, and there was no way he'd let something like that happen until he found out what was going on and if there was anything he could do to help save it. Excuse me, is something wrong? Asked Lee politely as he walked over towards the girl. Just leave, said the girl before she realized who it was. No, wait. You're him, Rock Lee. You're the person who became a ninja on taijutsu alone. That I am. And if I may ask, what is your name? Asked Lee. Kurama Yakumo, replied Yakumo. May I ask why a beautiful young lady like yourself is so down? It's unbefitting of someone who looks like they should be bursting with youth, asked Lee. It's nothing of your concern, replied a depressed Yakumo. That may be, but perhaps there is something I can do to help, offered the spandex-clad Lee. Please at least tell me why you are so down. After a few moments, Yakumo finally decided to open up and explain her situation to Lee. You see, I was born with a weak body, yet I possess the entirety of my clan's Kekkei Genkai. Our bloodline greatly enhances our genjutsu abilities to the point where we can actually make the brain to reflect anything that happens to them. However, I've tried my hardest to become a ninja, following your example and focusing solely on my genjutsu abilities. But I've just been told that my body's still too weak to perform the duties required of a shinobi. I see. The ninja way you and I have chosen certainly is a difficult one. It is one that requires hard work and an unwavering dedication, said Lee. But it is the one path of the ninja that I truly believe will shine the brightest in the end. But how am I supposed to become a shinobi if my body's too weak to handle being one? Asked Yakumo. Well, a little physical exercise has never hurt me, replied Lee. The body can be strengthened, no matter how weak it may seem at first. With a strong desire to drive you forward, nothing can stop you from achieving your dreams. I see. Then I'll just work harder to get stronger so that I can be a shinobi, exclaimed a re-energized Yakumo. And if you wouldn't mind, I would like to help you. It's always nice to have someone supporting you every step of the way, explained Lee. Guy-sensei was there for me, and I will be there for you if you will let me. End flashback. After that day, those two began hanging out more and more, and eventually Yakumo was recognized as a shinobi, explained Sakura. That was almost a year and a half ago, and she just made chunin at the last exam. Since her and Lee met, she had kind of been joining our group a lot, and we all honestly wondered when those two would ever hook up. And then, almost 2 months ago, they had their first date. They're a really cute couple and there really is a strong chemistry between them. Unfortunately, there are also a lot of issues. Issues? Asked Naruto. Her clan. The Kurama clan is actually one of Konoha's more noble clans, and seeing as Yakumo is not only the heiress, but also the sole possessor of their full Kekkei Genkai, they are rather protective of her, said Sakura. Since Lee was originally an orphan and he also has his condition that takes away his ninjutsu and genjutsu abilities, they don't approve of a relationship between their heiress and some talentless loser. Anyone with a brain could tell that Sakura was disgusted and struggling to spit out that last part. While her feelings and heart belonged to Sasuke, she had a great deal of respect for Lee and wanted desperately to help Lee find that special someone. What? That's just not right. Bushy Brows is one of the strongest ninja I know. I even fought him, and I can say without question Lee is most definitely not a loser. T-Bio, declared Naruto. Damn it, I can't stand clans like that who think that they're too good for someone. Sakura just stood there, trying her best to comprehend Naruto's logic. While she understood where her blonde teammate was coming from, she couldn't help but feel that his actions were slightly contradicting what he was saying. And here you are dating a Hyuga, so I know that Lee wouldn't let her clan get him down. So what happened then to get Lee into this slump he's in? Asked Naruto. Flashback. Yosh. I can't wait for today's most youthful training session with Yakumo-chan. proclaimed Lee as he marched his way through the streets of Konoha and towards the clan compound of the Kurama clan. As Lee came into view of the compound, he saw the two guards standing outside the gate. By this point in time, the guards had gotten somewhat used to the bushy-browed Chunin's visitations and merely nodded as Lee passed them. However, when he reached the house where Yakumo lived in, he saw her uncle and current head of the clan, Unkai, there to greet him. Lee knew Unkai just about hated him, but he didn't care. All he cared about was his day training with Yakumo and curry dinner they were looking forward to in the evening. However, that wasn't destined to happen as Unkai stepped forward. "Kurama-sama, I am here to request Yakumo-san's presence to train with me today," addressed Lee. "I must apologize, but our heiress will not be associating herself with a loser like you," spoke Unkai, trying to intimidate Lee. "Nor will you be welcome here anymore. We are one of Konoha's most noble clan, and as I have told you before, we do not associate with your kind." Lee had heard this before, and despite the clan head's attempts to dissuade Lee from their heiress. But this time was different as Yakumo actually stepped out from the doors and approached Lee. "Lee, I must apologize, but I no longer wish to see you. In fact, the only reason I have been putting up with you is so that I could become strong enough to become a shinobi and honor my clan. As such, I must ask that you leave and not return." Lee's eyes widened in shock. Did Yakumo-chan really just say that to him? Did she really just use him to help herself along? Had she really just tossed aside all those youth-filled moments they had shared together? He couldn't believe what had just happened and reached forward towards Yakumo, hoping this was all just some illusion. However, he felt his own hand being slapped away by the girl he had fallen for. "Don't you dare touch me, you worthless loser!" growled Yakumo. Lee was shocked at this. Never once had Yakumo used that tone on him. That tone carried hints of hatefulness and disappointment, something that the Yakumo he had come to know was anything but. Looking into her eyes, Lee could tell that she wasn't playing around and she meant what she said. Trying to hold back his own tears, Lee quickly made his way out of the compound, heartbroken. Had he looked back, he would have seen a sinister grin on Unkai's face. And flashback. "What? Please tell me you're not serious, Sakura-chan. Why would anyone do something like that to bushy brows?" shouted Naruto. "I know it doesn't sound pretty, but Yakumo wasn't at her clan's compound this morning. She was with Kurama-sensei and Inoiki-san since early this morning," said Sakura. While the whole mental demon issue had been resolved, Inoiki-san's been checking up on her to be sure there's no recurrence of it. "I can say for certainty that Yakumo was not at the compound when Lee was there." "Then what the hell happened?" asked Naruto. "Genjutsu. I wouldn't put it past them to use a genjutsu on Lee when he first entered the compound to trick him into seeing what he did," said Sakura. "Unfortunately, when I went to try and find Yakumo, she was still in her session with Inoiki-san. That's why I want to find Lee and try and explain this to him before he does anything stupid." "I see. Don't worry, I'll find him," Sakura-chan said Naruto before making a familiar hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Immediately, dozens of Narutos popped into existence and scattered throughout the village in search of their spandex-wearing friend. "Hyuga clan compound, Doton, Earth Dragon Bullet," exclaimed a mid-teen branch shinobi as he was displaying his newest jutsu to some of his friends and family within the clan. "Wow, that's amazing," exclaimed one of the younger Hyugas there who was still the age of an academy student. A few of the other younger Hyugas said similar things to the older Hyuga teen, until they heard a cough coming from behind. All of them paled to see the elder Iroh standing at the gate of the courtyard in which they were in. "Need I remind you that such ninjutsu is below a Hyuga?" asked Iroh as he raised his wrinkled brow. But Iroh-sama, I," said Hyuga teen was stopped cold as he saw Iroh make a motion with his hands to form a seal. The same hand seal that was feared by all the branch and the one that kept them oppressed. "You were what?" "You are a Hyuga and as such don't need to rely on cheap tricks to prove that the Hyuga are strong," said Iroh. "Or do you need a reminder?" "But, I understand. I apologize Iroh-sama for my inappropriate behavior," bowed the teen, hoping for Kami's sake that Iroh would lower his hands without activating the seal. Thankfully today, the branch teen would catch a break as Iroh just turned his back and walked away. "I will accept your apology this once, but do not let me catch you practicing ninjutsu outside the clan's designated jutsus for exams such as the Jonin exams," spoke Iroh before leaving. As everyone there let out a sigh of relief, no one realized that there was another observer. "Iroh, you old fool, ninjutsu is not a weakness, nor is it a bunch of cheap tricks. While I agree that our taijutsu is rather effective, there are a few glaring weaknesses. One of the most obvious is that by using solely taijutsu, it requires us to fight at close range, and if we were to face someone with strong mid to long range capabilities, we would certainly be defeated. Ninjutsu is nothing to discourage as it can be used to add a completely different element into our fighting style. either assisting the Juken itself or giving us the ability to fight against opponents specializing in mid to long ranged attacks, thought the observer. You were there for Hinata-sama's match. It's blatantly obvious that our traditional styles are growing predictable and outdated. The only reason Hinata-sama was able to win her match was because of her ability to adapt to something new. And the ability to be able to adapt is nothing to scoff at. I intend to teach you that lesson personally soon. Back around Konoha, he did what? Came shouts from the Yamanaka compound. Said shouts belonged to one Yakumo Kurama. It didn't take Naruto's clones too long to find Lee and bring him to the Yamanaka compound where Yakumo had just finished her psychiatric evaluation with Inoiki. It's like I said, your uncle used a Genjutsu on Lee to make Lee think you were just tossing him aside and try to break him, said Sakura. Lee-kun, I'm so sorry. I would never apologize, Yakumo, to a tearing Lee. It's okay, Yakumo-chan. I am ashamed that I could have thought you could ever act so unyouthful. For that, I shall climb up the Hokage monument with both legs and one arm tied behind my back, and if I cannot, then I will. Lee was stopped as Yakumo proceeded to kiss her bushy-eyebrowed boyfriend, effectively stopping his youth-filled proclamation. Oh god, thank goodness that's over, exclaimed a relived voice that was familiar to Naruto. As the blonde Jinchuriki turned to the door, standing there was a platinum blonde, purple-wearing Ino. Is that Naruto, Ino? Asked Naruto, tilting his head. Oh my god, it is you, exclaimed Ino. When did you get back? Wow, Naruto actually looks kind of hot with that coat on. Is that really the same blonde idiot from back in the academy? Kind of yesterday. I ran into Shikamaru and he said to stop by Barbecue to meet up with you, Kuji, and Asuma-sensei later tonight, but I was kind of dragged here due to a little problem, said Naruto, pointing towards Lee and Yakumo. Ino let out a sigh. I see the Kurama clan's giving them problems again. Everyone just nodded as Sakura explained everything to Ino. Yikes, and I thought Anko-sensei was cruel. You mean that crazy snake bitch? Asked Naruto as a chill ran down his spine. Yeah. I've been training under her for the past 2 years in interrogation and infiltration. At least until she got her Jinan team, said Ino. But the question is, what do we do with Lee? It's obvious that the clan doesn't want those two together, and this is just one step closer to them literally throwing Lee out. I still don't understand. Lee's one of the greatest guys I know. If they won't accept Lee being with Yakumo, then who will they accept? Asked Naruto as a slight tick appeared on Sakura's forehead, and Ino wished her fellow blonde didn't answer that. If they had their way, they'd want Yakumo to be with Sasuke-kun, said Ino as she looked over towards her fuming pink-haired. Oh hell no. They aren't getting my Sasuke-kun. Raged inner Sakura. Even though something was telling him that he'd regret this, Naruto decided to tell of an idea that just came to him. You know, if Team actually was here, we could use that. If Sasuke is what they want, then why not just have Sasuke go out with Yakumo, said Naruto just as he heard the sound of cracking knuckles. What did you say? Growled Sakura. Hold on, Sakura. Naruto might actually be onto something, realized Ino. What if Yakumo goes out with Sasuke-kun and you go out with Lee? And when they are away from the Kuramas, you guys just switch dates until it is time to go home. That way, Yakumo can get out of the house and spend some time with Lee, and until we can think of some way to prove to them that Lee is right for her, they'll think that Yakumo is dating the great Uchiha, as they put it, and lighten up on her. I don't like the idea of Sasuke-kun going out with another girl, but if they aren't really going out and it's to help Lee, then I suppose. But the problem is that Sasuke-kun isn't supposed to be home for at least a week, and since Kurama-san is on the council, he knows that Sasuke won't be home for some time, said Sakura. Like I said, it's just an idea, said Ino, completely forgetting the idea was originally Naruto's. Until then, I think Yakumo and Lee are only going to find time together when everyone from our group gets together. You know, I guess we could get everyone together tonight to welcome Naruto back. And we also do need to make it so that Lee's not as susceptible to Genjutsu, said Sakura. We saw today that the Kurama clan's not against using Genjutsu to try and separate them. Perhaps Kurenai-sensei knows something that can help Lee. But I do agree that we can do a get-together tonight, seeing as just about everyone is in town. Great. Hey Kurenai-sensei, think you can bring Yakumo to Barbecue tonight around 6:30? Asked Ino to the Genjutsu mistress who was listening in on the conversation with Inoiki. Sure, smiled Kurenai. Everyone. Thank you, spoke Lee. Don't mention it, bushy brows, replied Naruto. You two are happy together and we don't want to see some dumb clan politics come between true love, said Ino, getting a blush out of Lee and Yakumo and a giggle out of Hinata. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do much more until Sasuke-kun gets back and we can try our new plan out. You know, I just thought of something else, said Naruto with a foxy grin on his face. I wonder what Yakumo's clan would say when they found out their clan was named after a certain giant fox. What are you talking about? Asked Ino as Sakura actually laughed when she realized that the Kurama clan shared a name with Kurama, the very same Kyuubi who attacked the village 15 years ago. "The kid would be referring to me," said a voice that most certainly wasn't Naruto's coming from Naruto's mouth. "My name is Kurama." "What are you talking about? You're Naruto. Have you actually gotten dumber over the past 2 years?" asked Ino. "The kid is Naruto, I'm Kurama, but you probably know me as the Kyuubi." Just as Kurama said that, the sound of coughing and spitting tea could be heard as everyone looked over towards a gagging Inoiki and a wide-eyed Kurenai. "Crap, I forgot about those two." A lengthy explanation later. "So what you're saying is that you attacked the village, controlled by a genjutsu?" asked Kurenai to the Kyuubi-possessed Naruto. Kurama just nodded. "Ask the Hokage as you need verification, but it's true," replied Kurama. "And since you're speaking to us, does that mean?" Inoiki gulped. "Yes, the seal's been released for almost a year now," replied Kurama. "You know, the fact that the Kyuubi, Kurama hasn't tried anything unyouthful with the seal open should at least speak for something," said Lee. "After all, he did help Naruto-kun with the removal of Neji's caged bird seal." Kurama Naruto face-palmed himself as Lee realized that wasn't supposed to be said and everyone's attention turned to Naruto. "You got rid of the Hyuga's caged bird seal?" asked Kurenai in disbelief, with a glint of hope showing itself in her eyes. Taking back control of his body, Naruto just grinned and rubbed the back of his head. Kind of. But that really was supposed to remain a secret," said Naruto, sending a pleading look to Ino. "If the elders find out about this, then the entire branch family of the Hyuga clan could be in danger." "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I might like spreading rumors, but even I know when some things are better kept a secret," said Ino. "Naruto, if you really did that, I was wondering if you could do a friend of mine a little favor," asked a hopeful Kurenai. "Sure, what is it?" asked Naruto. "I was wondering if it wouldn't be too much for you to take a look at Anko's cursed seal," asked Kurenai. Something that most of the Konoha 15 had learned over the past few years was that Kurenai and Anko were in fact close friends, almost to the sisterly point, with one another, and Kurenai was one of the very few people in the village whom Anko actually trusted. "You mean the crazy snake lady?" asked Naruto, earning a glaring nod from Kurenai. "I mean, I can take a look. If you don't mind me asking, how long has she had that seal on?" "She had it on since Orochimaru left the village, just over 13 years ago," said Kurenai. "Great, another long-ass seal," muttered Naruto. "I suppose I could take a look at it whenever she gets back from her mission if I'm not on a mission myself. It'll give me a chance to test out Kurama's theory anyways, but hopefully I can find another way to remove that seal without resorting to that." "That?" asked everyone but Lee and Hinata. "I'll show you guys some other time. It was the seal I used to rid Neji of his," replied Naruto. "Thank you, and I'm sure Anko would be more than grateful as well," said Kurenai. "That's what I'm afraid of," gulped Naruto. "Now, about this whole Kyuubi deal," said Kurenai, getting back on topic. A few hours later, Naruto had finally managed to convince Kurenai and Inoiki that having his seal released wasn't exactly a bad thing, and that was only after Kurenai bolted out to find Jiraiya, who had been researching at the time she found him. Needless to say, Jiraiya would be having nightmares regarding naked women bearing something women shouldn't have and scheduling a few appointments with Inoiki due to a genjutsu Kurenai cast on him. But back to the story, and drag his perverted and traumatized ass back to confirm that Naruto and the Kyuubi weren't actually a threat. Finally, he and Hinata were on their way to a training ground, eager to see what the other had learned over the past 2 years. The two stared out with a simple taijutsu spar, and Naruto found himself unable to even land a hit on Hinata, due to the great increase in her own agility and grace that she had developed over the years. Her Jushu fighting style was really turning into something amazing, and while Hinata looked as if she was at home on a dance floor, Naruto was fumbling around like he had 2 left feet. That didn't mean that Naruto had forgotten anything about his own increased taijutsu abilities, it's just that there was no comparison between his and Hinata's. And add into that the fact that if he were an enemy, every time he was tagged would have resulted in a portion of his own chakra system being completely obliterated. Let's just say Hinata was one of the last people you wanted to fight in hand-to-hand combat. Next up for them was weapons usage, and this was where Naruto made up for his less than spectacular performance from their little dance contest previously. While Hinata was no weapons user, she still had maintained some level of proficiency with the standard kunai and even the tanto that she had been awarded upon achieving chunin rank. But compared to Naruto's usage of his sword, she found herself in the same position Naruto did back when they were sparring with taijutsu. "Wow, Naruto-kun, you've gotten really strong. I couldn't keep up with you in that last fight at all," complimented. "Hey, thanks Hinata-chan. You were really amazing, especially with your taijutsu," replied Naruto, earning a slight blush from Hinata. "So did you learn any amazing jutsu?" "Well I did learn a few others while you were gone. I may have also developed one or two of my own, said Hinata. How about you? Well, I really didn't learn as many jutsus as I wish I had. Uro-sennin wanted me to make my own, but he did teach me how to use water and fire jutsu, replied Naruto. You can use water jutsus? Asked Hinata with a perked interest as she received a nod from Naruto. That's great. It turns out water is my second element. Really? Hey, think you can show me one or two? Asked Naruto. Hinata nodded and walked over towards the stream that flowed through the training ground. Sutin, water whip, the pale-eyed beauty called out, and a whip of water began to form around her hand. Lashing out with the water whip, it wrapped around Naruto, and with a tug, Hinata pulled Naruto towards her into a quick kiss that left them both giggling afterwards. So is your next jutsu something that will get me out of this now wet jacket? Joked Naruto, causing Hinata to blush at the thought of Naruto removing his jacket. Still, much to Hinata's satisfaction, Naruto decided to remove the jacket anyway, seeing as they were showing off water jutsus. Underneath the jacket, Naruto had a mesh shirt, and while Hinata was wishing that there wasn't anything under said jacket, the mesh shirt still hugged Naruto rather tightly, and the bright red Hinata could make out the outline of a more muscular Naruto. While he wasn't stacked, his muscles had developed to the point where they were well toned and built evenly, thanks to the use of gravity seals that worked every muscle in his body as opposed to just a select few that traditional training weights would. This was due to the gravity seals distributing the increased weight uniformly across Naruto's entire body, thus working every muscle evenly instead of a select few. The poor girl was doing her best to hold herself back from just tearing Naruto's shirt off and exposing the bare prize beneath. After a few more minutes of fooling around with one another, Hinata decided to show Naruto the most powerful water jutsu she had picked up. Having Naruto take a few steps backwards, Hinata performed the most powerful water jutsu she had acquired. Sutin, Great Waterfall Vortex. Water began to circle around the young Hyuga before extending outwards in a violent vortex and crashing into the trees at the far end of the training ground. Whoa, exclaimed Naruto. He had seen that jutsu once before, when Kakashi-sensei used it against Zabuzai in the wave, and while he would have to admit that Kakashi's was stronger by far, he was still impressed that Hinata could pull off a powerful water jutsu like that, even though her primary element wasn't water. However, when he looked over at Hinata, Naruto could see she was a bit winded, that last technique of hers requiring a considerable amount of chakra, and Hinata was not the one in their relationship with the ungodly chakra reserves. It appeared as if it was his turn to show off a few jutsus while Hinata recovered some of her chakra. I only know two more water jutsus besides those two. One's a simple jutsu and the other one's maybe a low B-rank jutsu at best, commented Hinata. Still, that's amazing that you can do a high-rank jutsu like that, replied Naruto. I'll go while you rest. Uro-sennin only taught me one basic water jutsu but I do have one higher rank water jutsu that I found it in my clan scrolls. You know, it still feels kind of weird saying that. Stepping out onto the creek, Naruto prepared his own jutsu. Sutin, Spiraling Torrent. The water erupted from beneath Naruto's feet, swirling into a mighty whirlpool that extended outward around the blonde Uzumaki for about 10 meters, tearing any unfortunate trees that were close enough to the bank of the stream to get caught in Naruto's jutsu from their roots. Naruto proceeded, moving on to the two original jutsus he made when Uro-sennin was nagging on him to create his own jutsu. He unleashed his futon, fox scale, upon a poor, unsuspecting tree, the fox's claws cleaving through the trunk with ease. Following up, Naruto unleashed the fire version of said jutsu, Katen, Firefox, upon the fallen remains of said tree as the flaming fox ignited the wood into a smoldering inferno. Shadow Clone Jutsu, exclaimed Naruto, making a clone. I could even have one of my clones use one version while I use the other. Nodding to his clone, both Narutos used a different version of their foxy jutsu. Kitsune's Wrath. As the two jutsus combined, a large golden fox with multiple tails formed before engulfing a large area in a golden-white flame. Needless to say, now every tree in the area was quaking in their roots. Naruto-kun can actually perform jutsus of different elements with his clones? I've heard that's an extremely difficult task, and the only ones I know of who could do something along those lines was the Sandaime and Yondaime Hokages, thought Hinata. This was true in that since the chakra was shared between the original and the clones, the elemental attunement of the clone's chakra was synced with the original. Breaking this synchronization, while not impossible, was incredibly difficult and was one of the later milestones in the journey towards true mastery of the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Okay Hinata-chan, think you can show me any awesome wind jutsus you've come across? Asked Naruto. Most of my wind jutsus I've incorporated into my Jushu stance, commented Hinata. though there is one I really do want to show you. Lee sat in a meditative position atop one of the training posts, reflecting on everything that had happened that day between him and Giacomo. First her clan had tried to fake their heirs virtually spitting on the ground in which he walked, and then his friends had devised a plan to help the two youthful lovers out. It was then that Lee felt a hand rest on his shoulders. Turning around, he found that said hand belonged to none other than his spandex-wearing teacher. Gai-sensei? Letting out a held breath, Guy took a seat on one of the training posts next to Lee. Lee, I heard about what happened regarding you, Yakumo, and Yakumo's clan, spoke Guy. Ever since you brought her along with you to train with almost 2 years ago, she's displayed a will just as strong as your own. Just like you, she put her mind towards becoming a splendid shinobi, despite the fact that her body was rather weak. Despite what everyone kept telling her, you are too weak to become a ninja, you'll just get injured. Your body will never withstand the stresses of a ninja's life. She kept pushing herself and strengthening her body to the point where she could prove all those naysayers wrong and become a shinobi. While even I doubt she'll be more than passable in taijutsu, she's found her specialty in genjutsu, and just like you train taijutsu to the extreme, she's worked diligently to train her genjutsu abilities to the point where they will know no rival. Lee, you two are actually a lot alike. Both of you have that strength that drives you forward, no matter what the world throws at you. Both of you have known the hardships that come with the paths that you have chosen. Both of you know what you must continue to do to prove that despite all the doubts, you can in fact become splendid ninja. And with everything, both of you have found comfort and compassion with one another, said Guy. But, Yakumo's not just any girl. She is the heiress of one of Konoha's noble clans, and as such they do have to make sure that the man she eventually ends up with will be for the best of their clan. But I can't just let Yakumo-chan go like that. I've put in too much effort with her just to let her go because her clan says so, replied Lee, tears coming from his eyes. I care too much for her. A small smile appeared on Guy's face. I know. I haven't seen fires as bright as the two of you since, well, I honestly don't think I've seen fires burn as brightly as the two of yours. Which is why. Guy paused momentarily, building up the suspense. Which is why you must show everyone just how bright your youthful flames can burn and that you are the best person there for Yakumo. Guy-sensei, said Lee before allowing his entire being to ignite in a brilliant flame of youthful passion. Yosh. I understand, Guy-sensei. I shall do everything in my own power to prove to Yakumo-chan's family that I am the right man for her. And I will never give up, no matter how difficult the task may be. Yes, Lee. That's the spirit. Let your youth be your guide to true love, shouted Guy. I will, Guy-sensei. I will make you proud and I will show the entire universe just how brightly my flames can burn when the one I love is at stake. And fear not, Lee, I will do whatever I must to ensure your youth shines even brighter than 10,000 suns. Guy-sensei. Lee. Guy-sensei. Lee. On the outskirts of Konoha, a squad of Anbu was returning from what would be the final mission for two of their members. As of this day, Ice and Rabbit would be returning to the regular Jonin forces of the village, as recommended by the Hokage. Since Ice and Rabbit joined the Konoha Anbu Hunter Nin unit nearly 3 years ago, they had proven to be valuable assets to the village. However, both of them felt that it was time for them to return to the regular forces and that their skills would be better off there. As they approached the gates of Konoha, a chill ran down Rabbit's spine before all of them noticed a great flame erupt from the village itself. A large wave crash overtopped the Hokage monument with the sun setting directly behind it, and cries of youth calling out to the very heavens. With speed that would make even the Yellow Flash envious, Rabbit was already bolting in the opposite direction, away from Konoha and screaming, I'm getting the fuck away from that hellhole before that freaking monstrosity can challenge me to another one of his challenges. Ice and the other two Anbu just sweat dropped at this. And here we go again, sighed one of the Anbu. I wish he would stop doing that. I know Guy can be a little extreme, but if someone didn't know, they'd think he was actually trying to flee the village and I'd hate to have him marked as a missing nin, although I honestly can understand, commented the other unnamed Anbu. All three Anbu were darting off in pursuit of their Awal comrade. About 30 minutes later, the team of Anbu passed through the village gates, two of them dragging a bound Rabbit, while Ice carried the rather large sword that Rabbit wielded. As they arrived at the Anbu HQ, a few agents noticed the bound Rabbit and one spoke up. All the Anbu present knew what was up, as this was not a first-time occurrence. Yeah, I know, that last one really was like nothing else, commented the Anbu, referring to the genjutsu, which had been dubbed as the eternal passionate flames of 1,000 setting suns of youth. This one in particular appeared to be even more devastating than the original ocean sunset of eternal flaming youth, if that was even possible. About time you two showed up, shouted Ino as everyone's attention turned to the couple who had just walked into barbecue. Naruto? Is that really you? Asked Kuji, earning a grin from the blonde who had just walked into the restaurant accompanied by a certain Hyuga. Looking around, Naruto spied everyone sitting at the table. Shino was next to Fu. Shikamaru had been dragged there by Temari, who was now done with the preparations for the Chunin exams. Apparently they no longer were keeping their relationship secret from Ino. Neji was with Tenten and Lee was with Yakumo, a rare moment at the group's newest couple. Kiba and Akamaru were already trying to contain themselves at the delicious smell of grilling meat. And Sakura was next to Ino, with a seat on Ino's side and two open for Naruto and Hinata. The last two at the table were Kurama and Asuma, which had surprised Naruto a bit that they had actually shown. But he wasn't complaining. Naruto and Hinata took their seats in the open seats next to Sakura. Looks like everyone's here, well except Team. A small tick mark appeared on Sakura's head. She wasn't mad at anyone present, just the certain scarecrow that was keeping her Sasuke-kun away from her. Well, now everyone's here, said Asuma, a few seconds later as he pointed to the door where a young man, who could easily pass for a woman, was standing. Haku? Asked a pleasantly surprised Naruto, getting a nod from Haku. Haku was wearing a turquoise coat with a pair of loose pants. It was kind of like what he wore when he and Naruto first met back in the Land of Waves, but it was tailored more for civilian life, not shinobi life. By now, Haku was 16 years in age and he still retained a rather feminine look, something that was apparently characteristic of all Yukis whether they be male or female. So does this mean the Anbu gave you a bit of a break? Actually, today was the end of the last missions Abusa-sama and I did as part of them. We have been discussing it for some time and we are rejoining the regular forces, said Haku as he took the seat next to Ino. Hello, Inakin. Ino let out a slight blush at Haku's warm smile to her. You know, Haku's actually kind of cute. And he seems really sweet too. I wonder if he's single, thought Ino, letting out a very faint giggle that didn't go unnoticed by Sakura. Sakura whispered something into Ino's ear and the two of them giggled a bit, confusing most of the guys at the table. It looks like your party has arrived. May I take your orders? Asked the waitress. Going around, the orders were taken and conversation began with many asking for a story of what Naruto's trips with Jiraiya were like. The one that they found most interesting was Naruto's little escapade in the Land of Snow. Seeing it came as a pleasant surprise to Konoha when an ambassador from Yuki showed up at the gates of Konoha requesting to negotiate an alliance and trade agreement. It was known that ever since the takeover of Yuki by Kazuyama Dodo that Yuki was considered hostile to Konoha as Konoha had sent some aid to fight Dodo's takeover. A few other stories regarding missions were told. Probably another one that reached right up there as one of the more exciting stories was told by Team 8 where they had been assigned to escort a prince by the name of Tsuki Michiru during the final leg of his world tour. However, upon returning home to the Crescent Moon Kingdom, they had found themselves in the middle of a coup d'état where the current advisor had attempted to overthrow the current regime out of greed and a strong desire for the nation's bountiful wealth. Thanks to the actions of Team 8, the coup was ground to a halt and the leader, Shabadaba, and his three hired shinobi, Ishidate, Kongo, and Karenbana were defeated and brought to justice. They had proved to be tricky opponents at first, but once their strange abilities were analyzed, the fight against the three hired ninja proved not to be much trouble for Team 8. Team 8 wasn't the only team with their own stories and Team Guy had one or two of their own, in which Naruto had actually already heard one night while they were all getting dinner at the resort town on the other side of the continent. This mission involved a mission to Hoshigakure to investigate the disappearance of a strange star in which the ninja of that village drew some strange chakra from to augment their own abilities. For some reason, the training of this star's chakra had been ended by the Sandaime Hoshikage, but was ordered resumed by the current leader of the village, Akihoshi, who in reality was looking to claim the star's power for his own. Team Guy managed to defeat Akihoshi after he had taken in too much and became overloaded with the star's power, returning the star to the village but not before revealing the reason why the training was ended in the first place. After realizing what the star did to them, the village of Hoshigakure resolved themselves to become as strong as the 5 great villages without the aid of the star's power. Team 10 would have told a story but Kuuji was too busy inhaling barbecue. Ino was too infatuated with a certain ice user that she was sitting next to as well as some talking with Sakura, and Shikamaru just didn't feel like saying anything despite Tamari's urging. As dinner finished up, Kurama stood up, wanting to make an announcement to not just her team, but all the others present as well. I want to thank you for the lovely evening tonight. It was a wonderful way to spend my last night as your sensei, announced Kurama. What? Shouted everyone after letting what Kurama was about to say sink in. The only 3 who didn't seem surprised were Sakura, Shikamaru, and Hinata. Shino could also probably be mistakenly lumped into that group, but even by the Aburame standards, he was surprised. You can't, Kurenai-sensei, shouted Kiba. Why are you leaving? It's not like I want to leave, but I've been ordered by Tsunade-sama. I will still be around if any of you want to visit, but it won't be as sensei for some time. You see, I've just recently discovered that I am pregnant and will be on maternity leave for quite some time, announced Kurenai. One of things Tsunade stressed on the most was pulling a kunoichi from duty in the early stages of pregnancy, as early as a month or two, as the battlefield was no place for a soon-to-be mother. Really? Squealed Ino. Kurenai smiled. Who's the father? That would be me, I hope. I am the father, right? Joked Asuma as he stood up next to Kurenai. Of course you are, giggled Kurenai. Congratulations, you too. Cheered Ino and a few others. So does this mean you two are getting married? Asuma actually proposed to me a month ago, but we've been waiting for the right time to announce it. As to when the wedding's going to be, we've decided to have it after the baby arrives, said Kurenai. And yes, you are all invited. I'm afraid this is where we must call an end to this most youthful evening, Yakumo-chan said Lee as the group exited from barbecue. I just wish my uncle was so oblivious to see what I see in you. I swear when I get home, I'm going to pound some sense into him for that stunt he pulled on you earlier, replied Yakumo. No, please don't, said Lee. I will prove to him that I am worthy of being with you. That I swear. Lee smiled a glistening smile while holding up his hand in the knee sky pose. And until then, we will just have to have faith that our friends will help us out whenever we want to get together. I know. I just hope it won't be too long before he sees that you really are an amazing person, said Yakumo, giving Lee a soft kiss goodnight before meeting up with Kurenai to return to her home. Don't worry, Lee, if there's anything you need, just ask, Naruto said as he rested his hand on Lee's shoulder. His other hand was in the hands of a certain Hyuga girl. We're your friends, Lee, and Yakumo is our friend as well. We want the two of you to be happy, and whatever happens, we'll help the two of you out no matter what, agreed Hinata. Behind the two of them was the rest of the Konoha 15, giving Lee a bunch of smiles and thumbs up. Thank you, everyone, said Lee as he began to tear up a little. As that happened, everyone began praying that Guy wouldn't show up and the two would cast that horrific genjutsu that they did earlier in the day. And once again, it's just us, said Naruto to his girlfriend as everyone else departed to go about their own business for the rest of the evening. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.